Alex.
Welcome to University Baptist Church, and this evening's open church council meeting to hear two proposals for the development of our land. So I'm going to introduce Ruth Pagani now. She is the chair of our Committee on the Church Future.
Thank you and welcome once again. This has been a very, very long process for our church. It's probably been more than 15 years since the church started discussing what it wanted to do with the current building we're in right now, and what it may want to do with the land that we're sitting on. The building we're in now is more than 70 years old and has run its useful life. Some years ago, the Purple Line was imagined, and we found out that we were going to have a station right next door. In the beginning, folks were a little upset about it because we were thinking there's going to be a train running right next to the church. It's going to cause a lot of noise. How is anybody going to be able to get onto the property? Nobody's going to be able to see the church from the street. Later on, folks started knocking on the door saying, nice piece of property you have there. And we started getting the idea that with an old church, maybe we needed a new church. Maybe the land that we were on could be used for something a little bit more interesting. Maybe could be a little denser. Maybe could finance the either conversion of this current church or the building of a new one. So after these past 6 months of a structured process, we put out a request for proposals, and we received some worthy and some not so worthy responses. But our top two bidders are here today to be able to present to the church council and to the rest of the congregation what they see and envision as a potential project for this property and how they might be able to help our congregation and our church community in building a new facility for us to continue in our congregation's work. So first up is Capstone Communities, who's going to give us the first presentation, who will be followed by Gilbane Development Corporation. Capstone, you're on.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Pastor Mark. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. My name is Angie Rowie. I'm a developer with Capstone Communities. I have a team I want to introduce to you very quickly. We have Amanda Wallace, who's with Capstone, Alex Holt with Capstone. We have Dan Duke with Bowler Civil Engineering on our team. We have Mohammed Mohsen with Niles Bolton Architects, and we have Brady Davidow with Bazzuto, who heads up their pre-construction, and we're delighted to be here tonight. Thank you very much. This is a very exciting project for many, many reasons, mostly to see the vision and the opportunities and what can happen for the church moving forward. We're delighted to be a part of this. We looked at this project particularly with a lot of excitement because, as Ruth said, because of the Purple Line and the opportunity to have a transit-based oriented and a very vibrant mixed-use community, and we're just tickled to be a part of that. I know in the interest of time tonight, we want to get right into our proposal. If you guys have any questions, if you want to hold them for the end, to the end, that's fine. If you want to stop and have me explain something, we would all be happy to do that. But we really had 3 goals on this project when we looked at our proposal. First and foremost was we wanted to be able to facilitate the construction and to build a new church facility for the church. We wanted to build a new worship facility, worship hall, administrative space, a commercial kitchen, childcare, multipurpose, whatever the specification needs are the church moving forward. We wanted to be able to do that. Our second goal was to be able to facilitate making what we're calling a lump sum payment to the church to help just endow future operations with the church. Thirdly, we want to build a vibrant mixed-use project which is financially viable and we can finance. So those are our 3 goals, and we're going to stick to our knitting. That's what we want to do. Through the process, and you're going to see here quickly, we've kind of are going to show some financial metrics, and we're going to talk and touch upon just a couple things. But the main thing is our proposal is an all-cash purchase that'll consist, again, of building the church facilities and making a lump sum payment, maximizing that payment that we can based on other programmatic goals and decisions that the church wants. We want to be the church's partner and be very transparent in this process. So we have analyzed and looked at the financial metrics. As Ruth said, this project, the proposal process has been going on for a number of months, and we've tried to kind of be very fluid, creative, and responsive. We began to think early on that the church needs might be 15,000 square feet. And I know that there's a lot of work still to be done and to kind of figuring out the programmatic goals, but we're now looking and have assumed in our proposal that the church facility would be 30,000 square feet. That has a lot of impact on the way we've analyzed the project, and it certainly has a lot to do with the financial metrics. So I think there'll be a process of deciding what is most important to the church. The other thing is we're very, very mindful of building community benefits into this project, and we're going to talk about that. So again, our proposal would be an all-cash purchase at closing of the land acquisition. We're assuming that the sale would be a fee simple purchase. We also have experience working on ground leases with other churches. We worked with the Wesley Foundation in Austin, Texas. That's something we could look at if it was a structure the churches would like to pursue. But for tonight's presentation, we're assuming that maybe a fee simple acquisition of the land would be more preferable for the church. We would anticipate being, once the selection process is made, to basically be putting up earnest money in the amount of $100,000 that would take us through the first 4 to 5 months. At that point, we would kind of begin an entitlement period, and we would add additional earnest money that would go into escrow in the amount of $150,000. This is money that would all stay in escrow. I think it's important to note that when we work on these projects, which is, especially in these urban markets, can take up to 2 years before you can close on the land because of the entitlement process we're going to talk about in a second in Prince George's County. I think that by the time we close, we'll probably have closer to $1 million to $1.2 million or even $1.4 million in the project. And I think it demonstrates a real commitment to the project in addition to the earnest money that we would put up. We'll welcome church feedback on all of these sort of business terms that we're going through as well. I think in the upcoming slide, it'll really come in focus a little bit more as we talk about the financial metrics and the options based on the church's programming goals, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. I think at the end of the day, what we really want to do is be a very transparent partner with UBC and have an open book partnership where you can see what we're doing, understand the financial metrics, be a part of the process as we're designing and as we're go into the construction phase. So again, and we're hoping at the end of the day that what we can do is have sort of a process where we can have a profit sharing process where if we can go in and design the church facilities together on the front end, that we can maximize the cash payment we could pay at closing to the church to help endow their ongoing operations. Just a couple of key metrics. I think it's important to understand the timing metrics of the project. We would anticipate that the team that you guys are going to decide to work with as your partner would be selected maybe in December of this year. It typically takes us about 2 months till about February, probably of 2024, to work through a purchase and sales contract where we'd put that earnest money up. We'd be working in the meantime and understanding the technical site constraints of the project a little bit. We typically have about a 4 to 5 month time frame where we have our due diligence, where we're really understanding the site constraints. We would be working with Dan and with Mohammed on the design, and we would then be going through that period. Dan, would you like to say a couple things about the entitlement process? I think it's really important to understand. We think it's going to be a complicated process, and if you could say a couple things.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Dan Duke. I'm with Bowler Engineering. We're the civil engineering and land development consultant for the project. And in my 30 years with Bowler, we have worked exclusively and to a large extent within Prince George's County, and in particular within the city of College Park. So through the due diligence process, we will be identifying the constraints to the site, what different issues need to be identified and worked through as part of the design process. During that due diligence process, we will aggressively move forward with submitting plans to the jurisdiction in order to obtain approvals in as expedited a timeframe as possible. Coming out of due diligence, we'll proceed into entitlements, and the entitlements will include a detailed site plan, a preliminary plan of subdivision, both of which require public hearings. Following those approvals, we will then move into the technical phase, which will include stormwater management, land development plans, as well as building permits. All through this process, we will look for opportunities to move as expeditiously and efficiently through the process in order to obtain the approvals within the prescribed timeframe. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. From the time we get our entitlement approvals, we would anticipate closing on the land acquisition about 2 months after that. And we're really closing, I think it's important to understand that we're closing into our project financing and our acquisition of the land at the same time. The benefit of that is that we would begin construction immediately. And what I mean by that, and most importantly, is we'd be beginning the demolition and the construction of the church improvements, which Mohammed's going to talk about right now. From a timing perspective, we think the construction is going to of the church, which would precede the delivery of the residential and the retail, would take about 14 months. Do you want to say anything about that, Brady, real fast?
Sure. I'm Brady Davidow. I'm the director of pre-construction for Bozzuto Construction. So we looked at the schedule for the church and the actual residential area separately, knowing that the church has to happen first. So we anticipate the construction of the church taking about 14 months, assuming that we're doing brick and metal construction. We know we don't want to do wood for the church. So based on, that requirement and the size of the church, we're expecting about 14 months for the church construction before we'd actually start construction on the residential portion.
Once the construction, we think we're going to have sufficient laydown and be able to work on both components of the project, both the church and the residential, simultaneously. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Will this building be usable while you're building the other building? Is that how you're planning to do it?
What I would say is construction will begin first and it will be completed first. So it could be in operation while we're still under construction on the residential and retail. Thank you for making that point. So we would think the time frame would be sort of at the end of first quarter to second quarter of 2027 for the church to move into their new facilities. We're very mindful that expediting that is going to be very, very important. I know that I think Ruth had told me, I think there's been some costs have been incurred in their, maybe a chiller or a new boiler that I think has happened, that maybe you guys have had purchased recently, and we understand and completely appreciate the sensitivity from a time perspective to get into the new facility as soon as possible. We would then follow with the residential and the retail in about June of 2028 for the residential and retail. I'd like Mohammed to say just a couple things about our design, because I think it's important for the people who have not seen our design yet, just to understand really what we're talking about.
Good evening. My name is Mohammed Mohsen. I'm with Niles Bolton Associates. I'm going to walk you through a couple of things on the site plan, if we can get that on the screen. When we met a couple of months ago, we came to the table with several design options, several site plan options that we reviewed and got feedback on. Had great conversations, got a lot of feedback that we really kind of took back with us. And ultimately, we came back with this site plan that you have up on the screen as the solution that we believe fits the goals for UBC best. We heard a very strong preference to have the church be on its own small piece of property, freestanding, as opposed to being part of the residential building. And what you're seeing there on the screen in the top right corner, that white rectangle there, is about 10,000 square feet plus or minus footprint. And so 3 stories of that gets us about 30,000 plus or minus square foot of the church facility. The parking that you see at the bottom right corner there is dedicated parking for the church. So that's about 78 parking spaces. And during services where there's more demand for parking, there's a precast parking deck that's provided as part of the residential building. You can see it in the middle of the left side there of the site plan, and so that will function as overflow parking for the church during services when more parking beyond the 78 is required. We've always looked at this project and all the iterations that we've looked at it as 3 primary components. Obviously, 1, the church, 2, the residential, and 3, a community benefit space. And part of the discussions we had, we are proposing community benefit space in the form of retail or commercial space along the street where you can get a lot of frontage. And so that's about 5,000 square feet there that we're dedicating or we're proposing as retail space that can function as a community space. It's active use along the sidewalk that would help activate the street and give a strong connection between the sidewalks and the proposed building. And then the residential is the 3rd component of this, and obviously that's the more flexible piece that can kind of adapt to what we do with the church and the community benefit space. And currently proposed 251 residential units with a wide mix that includes 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, and 5-bedroom apartments. So it's a pretty wide range. We heard affordability is a desire, so there's an affordable component that's proposed as part of the residential units. And again, the precast parking deck there serves the residential and also serves as overflow for the parking. So this layout here provides the flexibility that you were looking for, provides the freestanding church building, and it kind of integrates the overall master plan together, meets the goals of UBC and the project in general. Happy to answer any questions about the design. Yes. Our firm and myself personally, we've done a good bit of religious facilities. We have done religious buildings, freestanding buildings, anywhere from 25,000 square feet all the way up to, we've done one that was a mega church, 435,000 square feet. That was a 7,500 seat auditorium. And so we've got a lot of experience. We've done several of them. I have actually personally been involved in a few during my time with Niles Bolton. I've been with the firm 21 years. And I do remember my first site visit was actually visiting that 7,500 seat church project that was under construction at the time. So we've done a good bit of that, and we love working with church committees and working through the program. We know that's a big piece of it, figuring out how to solve the puzzle, coming up with the program, and working through hand in hand with the committee to arrive at a solution that's effective and successful to meet your goals.
Thank you.
Is there any requirement in this area to set aside a certain number of apartments for low income, or is that part of the process?
I'm glad you asked. It's been interesting from the beginning of the process. We've wanted to, and this really touches on to community benefits. So let me transition into that because that's actually what I was going to talk about right now. We think we're going to have about a number of core community benefits that we want to touch on. One is obviously the new church and the new state-of-the-art facility, which you guys need. We're also working with Bozzuto, who's got extensive experience, and we were trying to think about how we can touch, especially the youth, And Bozzuto has a long-standing program in kind of providing training and apprentice programs to youth and youth ministry. So that's something they volunteered and want to do. And the third thing is we've looked at an affordability component, and we've been reaching out to stakeholders. We've met with the head of economic development for the county. We've talked to the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, some of the consultants that are working on affordability. And it seems like there absolutely is an acute need to incorporate affordability. When we first started the process, and remember months ago, we were looking at probably a smaller church, and we were looking at really more of a workforce housing component that was about 120% AMI, that's area median income. And as we've gone through this process the past couple months, we've really drilled down, and we were beginning to believe that the greatest need is really more at that 50% AMI level. And we've heard that, and it's interesting because that was also echoed, and for those of you that have a copy of our packet, I included a page from the Prince George's County 2020 final inclusionary zoning study. And the punchline of that study was they even identified this station stop, and they said developers are having a very hard time including voluntarily affordable housing unless there could be some possible development incentives. And they called out this station in particular, and they talked a little bit and went into detail, and I know we don't have time to get into it tonight, but there seems to be, at least from the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, some real research that's been done that could help the developers provide affordability. And that's really one of the key things we want to understand from you guys in terms of, we've made some assumptions here. Right now we're assuming 50% or 5%, 50% AMI and 5% of the units. We'd like to have more. We want to understand what the congregation feels is important, but we do have a diverse housing and affordability component that's a part of our metrics. We're also trying to make this a very diverse community, that we're gonna, we want professionals that are commuted in but want to live in College Park. We want UMD faculty. We'd like to see graduate students. I'm sure there's probably some undergraduates based on the proximity that would probably want to live here as well. But we really see this as a very, very diverse community, and we're going to take it a step further in the design with Mohammed. And we've talked about how we could have sort of affinity or cluster housing within the residential community. And what I mean by that is sometimes the professionals and the folks that might be on staff at UMD maybe want to be in a different wing of the building or have a different entrance than from some of the housing that might be geared towards floor plans that have more bedrooms. So we're starting to already begin to think about how do we make this a diverse project for everybody. I neglected, and I'm so sorry, Tom Weaver with Prospect Solar is here, and one of the components of our community benefits is that we're really going to be looking and want to include a solar rooftop panel program. So Tom is here to talk about anything solar if we want to after the presentation. But we think that kind of community benefit, especially given the ITC and some tax credits both at a federal, state, and local level for solar now, could be very impactful to this project. And I think finally, again, we need to keep sight of the fact that this is going to be a very, very vibrant corridor along the Purple Line. And we want this with our 5,000 square feet of commercial to have, a Dunkin' or a place to stop and get off the station and come home at night and have some neighborhood services and really activate that ground floor retail. So we think that that's really, really important component. So that, your question too, leads me to probably the last thing we need to talk about, and that's really the financial metrics of the project. If you go to the slide where we have the financial metrics, Curtis, you can see, and it's kind of difficult to see. I'm not going to get into all the details, but if you guys look at the columns from 1 to 7, what we tried to do is show you a little bit of the financial metrics of the project as you evolve from what our original proposal was at a 15,000 square foot church to maybe your possibly preferred 30,000 square foot church. Now, we've also studied it from a cost per square foot at 2 different ranges, and one of the things the church I think is going to have to really get very involved with us and help us understand too is the level of finish out, the programming, the needs, in addition to the square footage. So I think if I would just call your attention to kind of columns 4 and 5, column 4 is where we assumed we basically would be building a 30,000 square foot church with no development incentives. There were no possible pilot tax abatements for affordable housing. We're sort of going at it alone and the unit mix does not change. The programming for our retail and residential doesn't change. But you'll see, we wanted you guys to see the impact of a church that might cost hypothetically $550 a square foot versus something that cost a lesser amount. And the punchline you can see at the bottom of it is that we think that the financial package to the church, if we're building a 30,000 square foot church at a price point of about $550, that it's very challenging to provide, in addition to the church itself, that lump sum cash payment that we want to pay the church. But if you move over to column 5, the only difference is saying if we can work on the front end and we can work with Brady's team and look at the programming and look at the finish out and deliver that church at a lower cost per square foot, then there is the potential to build a church that might to build the church and maybe have a lump sum payment of $4.5 million to the church at the end of the day. And I think that is something that is very, very important to you guys. The one caveat and thing I want to say about the financial metrics, and it's very difficult to distill this in a 2-minute soundbite about the metrics, but one of the choices to your comment about affordability is the other opportunity to increase what could be the lump sum payment to the church would be if there was not an affordability component to the project. And I'm not saying that's something that is desirable for the community or for the church or for the project, but we just wanted to show the metrics of that. And if that were the case and you did not have that component, but you had all the other community benefits, we could pay the church an additional $2.2 million, we think, in a lump sum payment. So we think that's really important. And that's if the church cost hypothetically $550 a foot. If it was closer to $400, and I think that's going to be very challenging, but we just tried to show, on the other end of the scale, what that could look like for the church. And we think if there was no affordability requirement, that lump sum payment to the church, in addition to the church, could be closer to $6.7 million. So I know that's a lot to absorb. All we were trying to do in columns 6 and 7 was show the financial benefit to the church if we're able to partner with the church and really reach out to the stakeholders and persuade and convince the county that this is a project that really merits an affordable housing component. And if we could then get incentives that might include an affordable housing tax pilot, which is basically where they reduce your tax obligation sort of for making that commitment for a long period of time to provide those affordable units, then you can see in columns 6 and 7 there's some real tremendous benefits to the church. I think the bottom line is, and I think this is really where we want to close with just 1 or 2 other comments, is that this is the kind of thinking we do every day. And with your help and understanding what's most important to the church in terms of balancing the needs of the new church improvements versus the need to have an additional financial remuneration to the church, I think we can really work together to maximize both of those goals. I want to close and direct you guys really to the next page, if you will, and I think this really sort of says it all. We haven't touched on this, but the reason we're so passionate about this project is we went through a very similar journey at the University of Austin with the Wesley Foundation of Texas. They had a small parcel of land, 14,000 square feet. They had an outdated administrative office. They really didn't have any of the facilities they needed. We came in and partnered with them. It was a very similar process to what we're talking about right now. We were able to incorporate them into our building and build them a worship facility, build them administrative offices, embed that in our in our housing project, just blocks away from the University of Texas, under a ground lease scenario, a little bit different financial structure. And I would just want to end with this. These were the comments of Rusty Teeter, our partner, who is the executive director of the Wesley Foundation. In speaking about the experience with Capstone, he said, "You offered a creative solution of the underlying financial structure, listened to all of our needs, and ensured a successful implementation. Simply put, I think your stewardship of this mixed-use project from an inception through LISA was admirable. As a faith-based organization, I appreciated the way the Capstone team was open to and aware of the values and essentials of that aspect of your organization and project. They were willing to listen, plan, and make adjustments with us as we would articulate these values, and we appreciate them." Thank you very much. Great question. We hope it's a kind of thing that you would kind of grab on the go a little bit. You know, we see a lot of people stepping off the station, at the station stop and coming back to the, go upstairs. So I think they're going to want essentials, kind of a little bit, a bodega a little bit, things you kind of grab and go. Coffee. I could see having, be great if it'd be a great little local coffee shop, something where you can kind of get the things that you need and the essentials that make your life easier before you get on the train or after when you come home, those kinds of things. And something that has a scale of a neighborhood feeling and really feels like it's community-based. Oh, it'd be a great idea. Yeah, I think that would be a wonderful idea. I mean, what we see kind of going on once we get going in the project is you see us here kind of making a lot of assumptions. But the big thing that we think that needs to happen here is really get involved with the church and start listening to you guys about what's needed here. Is it childcare? Is it a bodega? You guys have the best information, I think, and our best resource to understand on the front end how we program this and do it together. Yeah, especially. I'm gonna let our architect talk about it. He'll do a better job than I will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we all agree that the goals for the development from the UBC and the development team is trying to build, design and build a community that's sustainable, that's green, that's really focuses on the occupants and how they use the facility and their well-being in general. And so there's going to be a lot of amenities that focus on outdoor space, certainly opportunities along the street edge and around the building to incorporate appealing landscapes and green spaces. The courtyards are going to have an amenity for the residents that's going to have great outdoor space and a lot of landscaping to soften the edges of the buildings. And so the goals are absolutely top of mind. And as we refine and develop it, and we develop the curb appeal of the development, where there's going to be a lot of opportunities to capture landscape and some outdoor casual seating areas that everybody can enjoy, from the residents to the church to the public, hopefully along the street edge. Yeah, of course.
I think our time is up. Yep. Well, thank you, Angie, and the Capstone team. Wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. And now we move on to our second team, Christian, and the Gilbane team.
Thank you. Great presentation, Angie. Curtis, go ahead with the slideshow. Thank you this evening for hosting University Baptist Church congregation, Ruth, Mark. This is honestly extremely exciting. I mean, this has been in the works for those who are local for 15 years. It could be even longer for myself. I've been working in this area 6 years, went to University of Maryland. I've been looking at this plot of land in this area since I've been in architecture school across the street. So it's near and dear to my heart. Gilbane Development Company, which I'll go into, is a great company to work for. It's a 150-year-old company with fourth, fifth, sixth generation participation. If we can go to the next slide, some of the key members we can go through that are here today. So this would be our full team from Design Collective and Gilbane. We brought some of our key members here today. Myself, Christian Syria, I'll be the development principal. Stefano Terracrola will be the head of construction. And then our design team, Design Collective, who has done a tremendous job within College Park and nationwide on design. You can keep that slide up. I'm gonna keep up with the PowerPoint slides. And then Luis as well would be the leader for design.
Also at the School of Architecture.
That's right, go Terps. Matt would also be a principal in charge. And then Angela, also a Terp as well. And so we really want to emphasize that we live in the community. Members of our team live here. We're just committed to this community. You can go to the next slide too, Curtis. We just finished up a project, this team in particular at Tempo. You might have seen it along Baltimore Avenue. We're currently working on another project right now that's going to deliver in 2024, the beginning, first quarter. That's market rate housing. And so, as you can tell, Gilbane has been busy over the last 150 years. So we have a general contracting arm and a development arm. We've done over 75 million square feet of total development, 10,000 units of affordable housing. We've done about $4 billion worth of public-private partnerships, similar to this transaction, which is really truly a partnership and is required for this type of an area where there's disparate ownership and really trying to make a dynamic community. We're looking to develop dynamic communities. That's what Gilbane's slogan is, and truly that's what we're committed to doing. And I think you'll see what we've already accomplished to date in the slides will lend itself to that. And as I mentioned, some of the projects that we've done, Prince George's County and College Park, I'll start from the beginning, and near and dear to me, my first baby in College Park, which was Tempo. We opened that up in 2022 during the pandemic. The reason why I mention that is because Gilbane is able to work through difficult challenges. That was literally in the beginning it was conceived prior to the pandemic, but executing it during a very, very challenging time, getting financing, both debt, and we used our own equity at the time for that. And so it's a 1,000-bed deal, and that was student housing, purpose-built student housing. And so that is successful and has been up and is 95% leased right now. And then the other project that was successful was the riverfront at West Hyattsville. Similar to this, it's transit oriented, and so you'll see a theme that we look for sites that are related to transit, and that's originally why we were so excited about this site, understanding what's coming, the Purple Line, and that this is truly the western gateway to the University of Maryland. And no one seems to recognize that, although it's on master plans. And so we want to realize that and really, hit it home. And why are they putting the Purple Line here? It's literally a very important component to it. And so we recognize that very early on. We're also in Prince George's County schools. We built a lot of the middle schools, a successful P3 partnership. And then, as I mentioned, Atworth, our market rate deal, that's right near the WMATA train station and Purple Line. So we have experience with dealing with, Stefano has a lot of hours with Purple Line, working with them and coordinating. And so that's important with projects. Relationships are everything, and we wouldn't be in business this long if we didn't have good relationships. It's truly important. And having just went through with this team, Tempo, we went through tremendous challenges with the county and city, and they're great partners and working through it. So they understand our work ethic and how we're going to move through challenging times, and that we're not going to just walk away. Not saying Capstone would, but some of our colleagues make developers look bad in the industry, and they might just walk away from challenges. We don't. We stay there and we figure it out during the times. And part of our kind of pitch is that it's a single point of contact. So we have the building company and the development company, and then you guys will be our partner as well. And we need to create win-win strategies and figure that out. And I think you'll see the proposal very transparently and clearly how it is win-win for everybody involved, and that's hard to do. It's not an easy thing. It'll look simple tonight, but there's been a lot of thought and preparation that goes into this. And so having your own capital means a lot in today's day and age. I'm very fortunate, we're very fortunate that we work for a company that believes in what they develop. And there's countless examples of that. And so when the markets are down, which arguably they are now, we will still progress because we believe in all of our deals. And so we're not reliant upon equity financing. And we have such strong relationships that debt is not a problem for us to have. Normally in a deal, there's some component of debt and equity, which is the cash component. And so we can handle both of those if necessary. Next slide, please, Curtis. Just some key market sectors, just to understand the breadth of our experience. So we do affordable and mixed income housing, commercial, government, healthcare, K through 12, mixed use, public-private partnerships, all the way to single-family residential. And so that just tells you that we can handle anything, and that's really what is important in a situation like this, that we're trying to create such a vibrant community adjacent to the Purple Line Station, the university, and next slide, Curtis. Some of the quick awards. Tempo did win an Innovative Award for Sustainability in 2023. And we're top 10 most active student housing developer and top 50 developer of affordable housing. And as I mentioned, we're working on Prince George's County schools as well. Next slide. ESG is a very important component. For those who don't know, it's environmental, social governance. We have a report every year, and our 2022 report is up, and I think we're about to have our 2023. It's very important, our environmental commitment and social aspects of this, and we'll kind of go into those. Curtis, next slide. So all of our projects as of late, and even in the past, are certified. So 7 are LEED certified projects, and 5 are NGBS. It's another rating system. Tempo was NGBS, and so this project we envision, as you'll see in the proposal, will be NGBS or equivalent. Next slide. Design Collective equally has an impressive resume with 65 plus LEED certified buildings, 350 design awards. I mean, they're really a good firm, and they're local. Oh, go ahead.
Explain to people what LEED is.
Sure. It's a green standard that basically when you build any construction projects, there's a criteria that you have to meet, and you have to meet that in order to get certified for LEED, and NGBS is just another standard for that. And so if you're sourcing material locally, there's a bunch of requirements, and so we're going to be following those, and they are going to make sure that we hit them, and there's a point system that goes with it. And so it's trending in the jurisdictions that they require this, and so we're going to do one of the highest levels of silver and strive for the top one on this project. Next slide. Some of the projects that Design Collective has worked on is obviously Tempo, my project, and Astor as well, which is in College Park, and Bizzuto actually built it, also a great firm, and we've worked with them as well. They built our Towson Row project, also not too far from here. DCI also did the City of College Park's design for the City Hall. As well as countless other projects, but just wanted to kind of hit on how much experience this team has dealing with College Park in Prince George's County, which is a unique animal in and of itself in terms of jurisdictionally and getting things approved, and having those strong relationships within, day-to-day, from permitting to development, entitlements, construction. It all matters. Everyone knows everybody, and to get things done and not take, 15 years. Next slide. So I want to go through, the goal of this is to just synthesize a proposal very clearly and transparently as to what Gilbane is offering on the table. And as I mentioned, this has been a commitment. We actually started working and identifying this as an area of interest 6 years ago. And so in 2020, which I'll mention, we actually purchased some land and have worked with the adjacent church, St. Mark's, and closed right before the pandemic on some additional land that we'll highlight. And so that kind of started the trajectory of kind of making this project come to life, the larger project of this area, because it's a disjointed quagmire, as I used to call it, of ownership. And so really need to unify it to be able to do something really truly amazing that benefits everybody involved. And so our proposal is pretty clear. We'll take all the risk and the financial risk and give you a lump sum payment in cash at closing. And so we'll walk through those very clearly. The purchase price is $20 million, lump sum cash, and there's 3 different deposits. The first deposit will be non-refundable, $300,000. Upon expiration of the approval period, it becomes hard, and we can walk through that in more detail. There's an additional $150,000 non-refundable payment that's made at the expiration of the permit period. Then there's another $150,000 that's non-refundable upon the start of the closing delay period. The inspection period, which is pretty standard, is 90 days. That means that you guys get to keep it if we walk away, which is really important because that's skin in the game, as we call it in the industry. So that means that, we're going to be, we'll talk more about that. If I could, let me finish this proposal and then I'll go back to that. It's a really important question though, and it's one that you should be asking because at times like this, developers can and will walk away from deals because it doesn't make financial sense. Our track record is that we figure it out and we know it beforehand. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think this was a successful project. And so the approval period is 12 months. That's what our experience is and what we've been able to achieve with Tempo most recently, and then also Astor. So we went through this process and it changes quite a bit. So we believe it's 12 months, and so that's the approval period. That's from after our inspection period, which is 90 days, with 2 extensions. So during that inspection period, we're going to be doing the physical due diligence. What does that mean? That means we're going to be drilling holes around the property and making sure, geotech holes and making sure that the dirt is suitable for whatever we're going to build, and just doing all of our necessary, due diligence that we would do on any deal. Any developer is going to need to do this in order to move forward, and so that takes time, especially during the holidays. And so we said 90 days plus 2 30-day extensions. We never know what you find, and you got to do more testing, and the jurisdictions require these things. So that's what the inspection period is. That period, the approval period, you transition into entitlements, which means that upon approval period, we need to submit a PSP and a DSP to the Prince George's County. And so that'll be part of our requirements. And that gets into skin in the game. So the amount of money, and Capstone kind of mentioned this as well, we're going to be spending a lot of money in order to get those plans to be able to submit. That's separate from the non-refundable, money. And it's in the millions because it just takes that much. All these consultants need to get paid, and we need to submit documents, in a certain time frame in order to get these entitlements. And so aside from the non-refundable, we will be spending our own money separately on trying to get those approvals. And so that's what happens during the approval period. And then there's a permit period. So once we get approval, yay, then we go to the permit period. And that's also equally fun, where it just takes time and you really need to think through that. And so we've broken it up, and you'll see in our schedule how, we're going to break up the phases of permitting, where it's a foundation permit, just to be able to start sooner, foundation, a grade permit, and then the ground up, vertical construction building permit as well. And we can break it up into different phases, and that just helps expedite the situation, the project overall. Land closing delay period, it's a tumultuous time. We might need more time, and so we want to build that in to the project in terms of when we actually physically close. And you'll see this on the overall schedule. What's most concerned, from my understanding, the goals of the church, which is really what we focus on when we respond to an RFP. What does University Baptist Church, to our knowledge, want out of this, right? It's been my understanding for years that you would like your own church. So we didn't make it complicated with the purchase price. It's $20 million. We pay cash, and you use that towards building your church. However you'd like to do that, we can assist in that. The guidelines for that, we're very flexible. We can help. We can build it for you, and use the proceeds towards that. We can do it a lot of different ways, and that's part of being a partner and having those solutions and having all those options on the table. And so that's for kind of a later discussion. But it's $20 million, and there's no pilot program. There's no tax incentives figured in. You get that regardless of whatever we're able to do with affordability. We imagine that there will be an affordability component, but this project also needs to be feasible. And so we're a very conservative company, which is why we've been around for 150 years. And so we don't assume tax credits at this early stage. And so this is without tax credits or any federal incentives, although we would go after those as well. It's hard to know if you're going to get them or not. And so we don't like to assume that. And so UBC church parking, that has been something that is very important and near and dear to UBC. And so we've come up with a plan, and you'll see it in a further blown up image where 75 on-site parking spaces that is exclusively owned by UBC. So you don't have to share with us. You have your own land that you currently own, and you would maintain that. And then you would have exclusive ownership of 75 spots, of which 4 would be handicapped, and you'd have 150-foot long pickup and drop-off area. That's a huge priority from my understanding in terms of getting the congregation in and out of church with a pickup and drop-off area along Campus Drive. And that'll be subject, obviously, to getting approval, but we have experience doing that, so we think we can do that along there, and it makes sense for the population. So that is a huge component. And then, I think you guys are still developing what exactly the church is going to be, and so we'll go through that as an envisioning session, a visioning session of how long that will be. It's like 6 months that we have starting in roughly December on, and you'll see that in the schedule. Next slide, please, Curtis. And so here's some of the community benefits of this project that we just rolled into this kind of summary, which is Green Building Standard. We hit on that earlier, where we're going to be developing this as an NGBS silver or equivalent, right? So that's that rating system that we talked about. It's really important. It's important to the community. It's important for us as a company to meet our ESG goals. It's really important to everybody that's involved in this project. And so that's very important, which is why it's number 1. Solar is also really important, and trying to it kind of goes in the same bucket as Green Building Standard, and trying to do what you can to do it, have as much solar. And it's also a huge incentive, given the federal tax credits for the church, to be able to do that and offset your utility costs for the church to be self-sustaining and operating. So we would look to help you incorporate that into the project, and we certainly will do that as well. A multifamily component, it's a little trickier doing it in the multifamily component, but we have experience and have done it. Same thing with the green roof. It's expressed that the UBC also would like to have a green roof. We have experience doing that. Again, it's trickier to do it on a multifamily, and normally we do it in limited portions of it, and so we would strive to do as much area as we can. All of the mechanical HVAC is on the roof, so there's only so many spots you can do solar, green roof, and then also have the actual mechanical area. So that's why we say strive versus committing to a specific amount. But the church would be a prime candidate to be able to have a green roof and a large portion of it and still get the utility benefits of the solar. And then a really important component is diversity of the labor force. And so, we have a general contractor. We've also worked with, Bozzuto, Clark, all of the big names and the best names. They're really great, and they do a lot of work in Prince George's County and in College Park. And so we can navigate that, and as part of that, minority-owned business enterprise, so they call that MBE, woman-owned business enterprise, WBE is the acronym, and then disadvantaged business enterprise and small business enterprise. All of those are combined into about 30, we're striving for 30% of the hard cost to be those different groups, and making sure that they're accounted for in this project. And we have success in doing that. That number came from Tempo, and roughly what we were able to achieve with our partner on that one, which was Clark Construction, who built that. Transportation-wise, the uniqueness of our plan, which you'll see in the graphics after this, is that we already own land adjacent to this property of 4+ acres, and so it's not just about UBC's land. It's what can we do if we combine the land we currently own plus with UBC and really make a community that's dynamic with access for everybody. Access has been the critical component of this area. It's not necessarily been land, although you do need land in order to get that access. But we've done that work for you, and so in 2020 we acquired the necessary acreage from your neighbors, St. Mark's, and we're going to be able to create a community that's going to have better access, not just from Campus Drive, but also from Adelphi Drive. And so that's a critical component to what we offer, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. So when I say transportation, we're talking about vehicular, sidewalks, bike lanes, everything, scooter parking, individual on-street bike parking, and then also we'll have our own bike parking as well within the multifamily component. But you also want some public bike parking as well. And a bus stop. That's really important. You're going to have a multi-module transportation network. You're going to have the Purple Line that you're going to be able to connect into DC. And you're going to have vehicular access, not just one point of access along Campus Drive, but you're going to be able to access Adelphi. So what does that mean for the church? That means during a ceremony, after a ceremony, you'll be able to get in your car and pick which direction you're going to be able to go to. And currently you can't. And so that helps with traffic flow. That helps a lot. So you can now ride your bike, you can walk, you can take the Purple Line. When this is done, of course, obviously this is going to take some time. The Purple Line will take some time as well. But we got to start now. We got to think about these things and start planning for the future. And so that's what this is about, is really making a plan that works for everybody. And then we have land closing will be 15 days after kind of all those periods I mentioned. If you can go to the next slide. So this is a timeline. You're not going to really be able to see it, but just bear with me. It's in you can zoom in on the PDF. There's 3 different components. We broke it up basically, and I'm going to look at this one because my glasses only work so far. We have development, design, and construction. And we just broke it up as simply as we possibly could. And so everything in black is all the development stuff. That's all the fun stuff that I get to deal with. And so you see the different periods of time. So RFP submission, that's when we started, April, of this past year. And we expect in December to understand who the winner is of this. And then fully execute the PSA by February or sooner. We have experience it's not that tricky of a transaction in terms of that, so sooner the better, right? We've waited long enough. And then have the inspection period, 90 days, and then we have those 2 extensions. Then you have the 12-month approval period. And then you have submission of the PSP application and the submission of the DSP application. And those are by the diamonds. I like skiing, so I use them as the demarcations of, it's almost a black diamond, but in any case, those are when we would submit those. And the reason why that's important to understanding that is because in order to submit those, you need to spend dollars to submit them, meaning you have to spend, we have to spend more money to submit them. So I want to make sure that you understand that those given stages, we're going to be more than invested than the non-refundable money that we talked about earlier. In any given stage, we're going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in addition to the non-refundable, which further commits us to the project, to making this a reality. And so then we go on to the building permit period, which is 4 months. And at those times, you'll see when the deposits become non-refundable, going back to your question. And then the earliest land closing would be after the permit period. And then there's an 8-month period that we can utilize, and we put another $150,000 of non-refundable to extend out the closing. And that's just to time the market. Everything is market related, and have that flexibility. Or if we need more time from permitting or any of the other facets of the deal to be able to have that. And it's smart to do that in this day and age, obviously, with the uncertainty of approvals and various things. When you're talking with multi-agencies such as Purple Line, Prince George's County, yourselves, you're going to be a partner. We want to build in those extensions ahead of time. Let's not raise our hand, 6 months into this that we messed up on the schedule. Let's just plan for that and hope for and we can always not use it. And if we're really good, close at the earliest land closing. So that's how we handle it. And then we go into the construction new UBC church. And so my understanding is that you would like to have this operational while we're building the new one, which makes sense. And if that changes, that just accelerates this whole schedule. But we've assumed that. And so this will be operational. We already have land, so our laydown space will be adjacent and out of the way. This won't affect your parking, won't affect really anything. You'll still have this, there might be some area of your parking that we might need, but You're going to be able to park here and go to Mass here while we're constructing the new one. And so that's a huge component as well of this. And so the timing, we don't try to forecast yet what the design is. We don't have a design that you guys are going to come up with during this envisioning session. So it doesn't really matter what the timing is. Whatever it is, right? So we just assumed it's 8 months. Typically, the 1,000-bed deal that we did along Baltimore Avenue, that took 24 months, to give you an idea. And so this is a 30,000 square foot. That's a 450,000 gross square feet building. So we think that 8 months is more than doable, but it's going to come down to during our planning session, which will be hand in hand with you as to what are the finishes, what is the ultimate square footage. That's for you to decide and us to help you and realize that. And that's what I'm here for, not to dictate your program. Whatever you guys would like and want, that's what we're going to help facilitate, is your goals and objectives. And so we can tweak the timeline, but we use that as an assumption. And so using that assumption, it's 8 months for that period. And so what you could see here is that we have a visioning session of 6 months starting in January, assuming we're being selected in December. And that continues through till June. And then you see that there's an overlap of schematic design. We're going to need your schematic design in order to submit the PSP and DSP. So we're going to need to have that as part of it. So that's why it's overlapped, because we're going to submit this as one project. It's one unified project, right? The church, the multifamily, the road, all of that is going to be going in. And so we need to get working on that. And then also, there's a 2-month period in between each, schematic design, design development, and construction development drawings. That's important. Those 2 months, you could stack it, but you really want feedback from the general contractor. You want your own feedback and pricing. Make sure we're going in the right direction versus just keep going to the next stage. And so that's strategic to having those 2-month gaps in between those drawings. And so the schematic design, those are drawing packages. I'm sorry if for those who don't know the nomenclature. So that is drawing packages from the architect that's how us developers submit these plans. So schematic design is the first part, design developer, design development drawings, that's a more refined set of drawings. And then construction drawings you can construct off of them. And so each one you're just refining down to being able to actually build whatever you're trying to build. And so that's what those packages. Sure, and I mean, to be determined. My understanding is that you will have your own architect, but you could also, Design Collective could also be the architect. To be determined as to who will do the drawings. I think Ruth has been talking with some architecture firms to handle that component of it, and we will be here as an advocate of the deal and helping coordinate that through the program and fitting it in to the overall site development. But you'd have your own fee simple ownership of your land for the new church, and parking 75 spots. That's already planned, and that's what we've done. And you have to plan that before. So it's essentially the architect is just their architect, your architect, University Baptist Church architect would just be for the new church. But it also could be that you use our architecture firm. It's very flexible. We've seen it multiple different ways. Continuing on, then you see the mixed-use development, and that kind of overlaps, and because we have to submit that as well. And so you have the schematic design, design development, construction drawings, and so they're kind of, operating in tandem. And then you have construction. Phase 1, to my understanding, the church is going to be demolishing the parsonage site, the current buildings at some point. And so I'm not sure when, but those were anticipated. So that's the first thing that would happen. And then there would be a phase 2, which would be the new UBC church and the new UBC parking lot, and those would need to be completed in order for us to start our project, which would be the multifamily component of it. And so you would see the full infrastructure built out, and you'd have your church already built and your parking secured before we would start construction. And all of our construction materials don't have to be, you won't really see it because the property that we own is kind of behind with trees, so we have laydown areas separately from that. And the road network would be there. The only thing is the road network wouldn't have a top coat, but that's getting in the details. Top coat's the final coat for asphalt. Go ahead, sir. Sure. Yes, we do. Yeah, I mean, so these are the things that I really love this part because this is really how you make a win-win, understanding the objectives. So for instance, if you can, I think we're done with the schedule at this point. We can go into further detail if you need to, but Curtis, if you can go to the next page, which is the
Question is there enough land to accommodate?
yes. The answer is yes, but I want to show it to you because me saying yes doesn't mean anything. I want to show you where it is and how we can achieve it, right? So let's go one more slide. One more? Sorry. One more after that. Okay, maybe one more. I'm trying to get to I want to show the retail component. Keep going. One more. Ground floor retail. There we go, right there. Okay, so we have envisioned 9,100 square feet of retail. That could, oscillate a little bit, but within that component, we're envisioning a restaurant, coffee, convenience, daycare. Daycare is a huge problem in City College Park. We're aware of that. We know that. I have kids, second one on the way. So this is more important than ever for me personally, but also for the community. And so that's something that we can work with our partners to achieve, our retail brokers, and make sure that we get what is needed in this area and not just try to fill it. Traditionally, retail is kind of, we call it throwaway retail. It really makes a community though. And so there's a balancing act, right? It's really difficult for developers right now to figure out what's the right retail because we're required to do it, right? But if you're gonna do it, I wanna do it right. I don't wanna just have to do it to do it. So if you, with this large enough amount of area that we have and the vibrancy of it, we should be able to attract the necessary retailers that we all would like, right? Daycare, you'd like a restaurant, you'd like convenience. There's already some convenience down the road, so I would like to see, I would think, some restaurants if we can. People might say you can't do that, or that you couldn't. You can now, because you have the Purple Line coming here, you're gonna have multifamily here. There's a synergy, and that's what we're making here. You couldn't when the other projects had started, and that's why you see Subway and those type of fast casual places, and so many will say you can't do a restaurant here. I like to push that envelope. I think you can, and I think you can do daycare, and I think it needs to happen here because there's nothing on this side of campus, but it's the western gateway into campus, so that there needs to be. Go ahead.
Do you have a projected date of completion of the church building?
Yes. Could I, just because slide orientation and we're communicating, let me go back to it. If I don't answer it, don't let me leave without it. Let's go back to the first graphic. We're almost done here. I need maybe 4 more minutes. Let's go. Okay, so let's hold here. So you see the Purple Line station, you see our multifamily component, the new residential building, the large one with the 3 courtyards. That's currently where the existing church that we're speaking in right now. Then you see a road that goes through it with there's on-street parking, very critical for retail. You need to have parking, you need to have trash, which we have both of those. There's separate access for the garage that's contained within the new residential building on the left side of our multifamily, so it's separate from the main spine, as I'm calling it. And then you'll have the new UBC building. 15,000 square feet is the land area, not your total square footage. So that was a requirement in the RFP. You guys can build up as high as you want. Well, not as high as you want, but it's, if you want to do 30,000, you can do 30, you can do 40, you can do 50 if you want. It's up to you guys. And so then you have UBC parking, which is 75 parking spaces. And we worked really hard to make sure that you have your own parking that is not commingled with the residential component. And that's what we've been working on very hard to make sure that you have that and pick up and drop off. That's a priority. And because of our unique road network, which you could see this L shape, we currently own this, right? Where it says a new street, Gilbane Development Property. We own that right now. And this other building is area that we currently own that's immediately adjacent to this property. And so the synergies are great between this RFP and the land we currently own because access makes everything and economies of scale help. And also phasing helps, right? So we wouldn't building both of those buildings at the same time. One would be built and then the other one. So if you go to the next slide, I'm gonna illustrate this a little bit better. This is the current ownership structure that's in this area. You'll see in the yellow, University of Maryland owns that portion, Gilbane owns the red, and you own the blue. Purple Line took some land from the blue and from the yellow, and that is the current ownership structure in this area. It matters who owns what, because that's how we're able to actually move forward. And so we've done the legwork to get the red, which was 2 separate parcels, actually it's 3 separate parcels, and combine them into what you see there. And that really helps set up the Adelphi sector plan, which is ultimately what we're going to be submitting. Prince George's County during this whole process came up with the Adelphi sector plan because they realized that this area hasn't been thought through since 1989. And we helped with them with that and kind of spurred that on 6 years ago because there was no plan for this area. And so go to the next slide, and then I think we're probably good. I think I still need to answer your question, but we'll get to that. This is the access I really wanted to show. This is a huge differentiator, is that you can see that we have separate access onto Adelphi Road and Campus Drive. And by doing that, it really allows the congregation and the multifamily to benefit from multiple access points. It's going to be trafficky along Campus Drive. It's going to be, it just is. It's a gateway, there's going to be a Purple Line station, so having another access point is huge. To be able to get out from Mass, to be able to get out from wherever you are and access, and then also pedestrian connections too, back to campus. And what it really does is it allows people to choose their mode of transportation to get here and not imply vehicular or bus or, Purple Line. It's whatever you have, whatever you can afford, and whatever you want to get here. And that is very much what we're trying to do in this community, is offer a diverse opportunity for anybody to live here. And so that goes with access and transportation foremost. Let's go back to the schedule real quick, Curtis, and then I think we can end it on there unless there's any other questions. So you had asked, I believe, when the church will be completed. Okay, cool. So that is phase 2, and that would be, so go to the next slide. So it would be 2025 May. Sorry, glasses. It's thank you really for your time. This is amazing, and we look forward to a continued dialogue. As you can see, we have a lot of experience partnering. We've worked with your neighbors, and they're very happy. St. Mark's, we work with other churches. This is how you do development in the 21st century, is you have to have a partnership with somebody else, and we're really great at it. And I really love working for Gilbane Development, and I also love working in College Park and Prince George's County. So we look forward to hopefully speaking and making this come to reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank both of our presenters. I think we got a lot of information, probably have a lot more questions as well. Feel free to send me any particular questions that you have. I wanted to give you an update on the process going forward. Now that we have our YouTube we have the presentations on our YouTube channel. They are there, and they will be linked in when we send out the vote to the congregation. So folks can either review it again if you've already watched it, streamed it at home, or you're here present today. You're able to look at it again, and you can absorb what it was that was being communicated. If you haven't seen it, for folks who haven't seen it, they can actually stream it and look at it again and look at the decks. And then after this meeting, the church council and the panel will be reconvening, and we'll be discussing some of the particular issues. There are going to be some questions that have to be clarified. I'll be getting back with both of the companies if there are any kind of questions that I can't answer by now, because I've been kind of steeped in it a little bit more than the panelists and the church council. Then we're going to send it out to the congregation for a vote. Then we're going to be tallying it up, and then we'll be getting in touch with the final bidders, probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks. So I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Will there be time to discuss it before there's a vote?
We can definitely discuss that at the business meeting, right, Tom?
Yeah, we'll have an initial discussion this coming Sunday as part of the business meeting, conveying some of this information and having initial discussions. The church council will meet the first weekend in December, and if there are other questions out of that, we
Well, we're gonna send it via email, and for those couple of members that do not have email, we will be sending it via regular post. Okay, so everybody will be contacted, and there will be a time to be able to get it in. And we haven't made a decision in terms of how long we want to keep the voting open, but it will be open for a short period of time to give enough people a chance to review the materials that have been handed out and to be able, and we'll send a couple of reminders as well. Anything else about the process? Well, thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time to put these delightful presentations together. They're really informative. As much as I've been reading them, I've learned something new today as well. And everybody gets home safely. And thank you to everybody who's been watching online. And any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me, and I'll either answer them directly or I'll get the answers to you as soon as I can. Good night, everybody. Drive home safely.